Hello and welcome to Soul Symbols. My name is Shelley and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. I host card readings twice a week. I read both tarot and oracle. I read intuitively based on the symbols on the cards. I started getting into oracle because I believe that symbols are very intuitive, and I think that your subconscious and your mind speaks in symbols. And I think that, reading the cards acts as a nice way to be of therapy, to both solve problems and also, just find kind of an inner peace by reading the symbols and the signs. I do not channel, but I do, read the cards, and I find it to be very self-reflective and helpful in a kind of meditative way. And what I do is I hold readings twice a week. On Tuesdays, I do my How to Tarot series, which is where I go through all of the 78 tarot cards, one card a week on Tuesdays, starting with the Major Arcana. Last week was my first week, and we did the Fool. And this week we're going to go again, and this time we're going to go with the card number 1, which is the Magician. So we're going to have fun reading. What I do is the first part of the video would be talking about the symbols in the Magician. Just to get, if you read tarot already, it's just kind of like a nice refresher or kind of a perspective on the symbols in the cards. And then if you don't read tarot, it's a nice way to learn about the symbolism and kind of get an idea of what the tarot is all about. So what we'll be doing is, after we go through the symbols on the cards, I will go ahead and I will do a personalized reading from the deck in which the card you pulled, you select, you choose one of the piles based on your intuition, and then I'll go ahead and do a reading. So we're definitely, we definitely make it fun. In addition to pulling cards from the tarot deck that your magician came from, I will also expand the reading a little bit with oracle cards, and I will describe the oracle cards in a minute. Just for a few brief announcements, I wanted to thank you for being patient as I got through some of the technical difficulties. This is only my second week on YouTube, so I'm learning how to be a video producer, so to speak. Please, if you would like, if you see anything that needs attention, like either the image quality or the audio, please feel free to leave a comment or a private message. I am working, I tried to use natural light. Tonight is going to actually be the first time that we use regular nighttime lighting. As we go into the winter, the days get shorter, and yeah, unfortunately I won't be able to film as much during the day. So tonight's going to be kind of a tester to see how the nighttime readings would go. Also, the sound quality, I like to shuffle on camera. Sometimes that jostles my microphone, but I'm doing my best to try to make the audio very clear as well. I have there's something that muffles the sound. They call it a dead cat, and it's this little fuzzy thing that you put over your microphone. So if that's helpful, I will do that. It's faux fur. No cats were harmed in the making of this video. It's apparently helpful. It helps keep the voice very clear, and it just, it filters out any background noise. So if you feel that's necessary, I will do that. The microphone just, it helps my voice sound like Dawn LaFontaine, in a world where tarot. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding. Okay. But so I appreciate you being there, and if we're going to work through the technical difficulties. But to get started, we have 3 decks. I am going with different decks, but one thing that I am doing is that for each week, I am going with the decks that I think best I'm going with the favorite decks. I have lots of tarot decks, but what I do is I tend to go with the How to Tarot. The first deck will primarily be the Rider-Waite Smith, which is the cornerstone. It's like the original tarot deck from, that 1900s. So here we have the Magician from the Rider-Waite Smith. So that's option number 1. And if you choose, you can also go with the stone option. That is a sunstone. It looks a little bit brown, but let me go ahead and get in the light there. Yeah, there we go. And then the next stone, the next choice is Morgan-Greer. And again, I'm just going, there will be different decks on different weeks. It's just, as we How to Tarot, these are the 3 decks that the Magician really has the most significant imagery. And we'll do that for every card, choose the best deck that has the best imagery. The stone that's paired with the Morgan-Greer is a lapis lazuli. It's kind of a blue and white stone. And I will be showing a picture in a moment. You have 10, there'll be a freeze frame where you can look at the different piles. And then the last one is kind of a fun deck. This is the first time that I've used this deck on my channel. This is the Vice Versa Tarot. And I absolutely love this deck. This is a fun one. And what it is regular decks have kind of a regular backing to them. This one, the Vice Versa, the reason it's called that is because all of the cards, there is no formal back to it. But when the card is flipped over, that is considered to be the inverse or the upside down of the deck. So, instead of a card having to be flipped out upside down, or that's how you, when you look at the back of the deck, is if the card comes out, flipped over, you would read the it would be almost like reading a reversal, like reading the inverse or the opposite of the card's meaning. So we're going to be using that as deck number 3. And the stone, this is another one of my friend Tumble's stones, and I'm so lucky I get first choice of all of the prime ones. This is a Dalmatian jasper, and I just think it's so neat. I think the coloring goes so well, and you'll see the coloring just goes so well with the deck. To clarify your reading, we have an oracle deck by Sonia Chiquette. It is Ask Your Oracle Guides. And this one is similar to the Answer is Simple, which is the one I used, the oracle deck that I used for the weekly readings last Saturday. But this one, it's very similar. It's very positive. But I like this one, this particular deck by Sonia Chiquette, because I hope I'm saying her name right, because in addition, the other deck is very positive. This one is also very positive, but this one also kind of gives you the real world answers as well. Like it might point to, basically the messages in it definitely are a little bit more real, which is very much the magician's energy, And then the last deck is this one's kind of a special one as well. I like very unique decks. This is called the Nova Oracle. And this is actually a vintage deck that I found on eBay, and it is, it's like a good, 40-year-old deck that was kind of custom made, and the authors are, and I hope I'm saying his name right, Mr. Grygny and Zimmerman. So the artwork and the thing, and it too is a very modern deck, and I think between these two oracles, the definition of the cards are really going to be, give us a very clear reading, and I like that. So I hope you enjoy that. Please tell me what you think. And so now what I will do is let's go ahead and go into the description of the Magician. So this is the How to Tarot part. The Magician is exactly, last week we talked about the Fool, and how the Fool is, how it's the beginning of the story. The Fool fell to earth and took on a human body, and so he's a very novice spirit. Here, the Magician it's the second card in the Major Arcana, but if you look at it, the number, it's the first one with a number. The Fool is a 0, and the Magician is a 1. And what you'll see is, it kind of, when you look at his face, he kind of looks like he's the Fool, but a little bit grown up, right? The Fool doesn't look like a child anymore. He looks like he's in his early 20s and coming into his own, right? He looks like he is strong and he's been around a while. And I just came back from a wonderful weekend retreat that talked about the symbolism in cards. And what I'd kind of like you to do is, if you choose, if you'd like, as we How to Tarot, feel free to pause the video and just kind of look at the images and just go ahead and describe what you see in very plain language. So if we look at the Magician and describe what we see, he's wearing, you know, he looks like the Sorcerer's Apprentice, doesn't he? He's kind of got that headband around his head. His hair is a little longer. He just looks like he's had experience, right? He looks like he's been around a while, and he's learned how to use that body and that soul and that spirit. And we talked last time that in the Fool had a knapsack on his back. And in that knapsack, he had we described that the 4 elements, the wand, the pentacle, the cup, and the sword, those 4 elements are in his knapsack. And that's what the Fool. Now, if you look closely, you'll see on the table that the 4 elements are there. And we'll get to that in a minute, but you can see that that's the beginning of the Minor Arcana. All of the elements are there laid out in front of him. Above his head is the symbol of infinity. Whatever goes in, goes out, and recycles and goes in and out again. If you look at him, he's standing in a rose garden, and there are white lilies there. And the Fool had a white flower in his hand. You weren't quite sure if it was a lily or not. But here, lilies, and especially in Lenormand and other meanings, mean maturity. It means experience. And definitely it just kind of speaks of him having some experience on earth. If you go ahead and look in his hand, he has what looks like a wand, and it is white, which represents either purity or pure energy. And it almost looks like a candle that's burning at both ends. And when you look at a distance, you'll see that the Magician is pointing to the sky and then pointing to the ground. So it kind of gives you the sense of as above, so below. And then the last observation, if you look, you know, he's kind of got like a tunic on. It doesn't quite look like normal clothes. He's got a cape on, and he definitely it kind of looks like a gym uniform when you think about it. But really, it's kind of the cloak of an apprentice or someone who learns. And you notice that what a bright red it is. It's the same, it's almost brighter than the roses. And when you look at it, it's like, and it's the same for all 3 cards. If you look at the Morgan-Greer, you have the same thing. He has the bandana. He has, I love how it has really big roses and lilies in this one. And then, you know, there's a tie around his waist, the infinity symbol. The sun is rising behind him. The other thing is when you see the kind of turrets in the background, symbolically, anytime you can kind of distinguish the countryside from civilization by the landscape, right? If you see something that looks like a building, that usually indicates, you know, so you have greenery, and then you have turrets, which kind of indicate, all right, so, you know, he's discovered civilization, and he's been around a little while. And you see the same wand in his hand, and the same position of him pointing above and below. Now, the red cloak, I love this, is that you kind of see in the vice versa deck, that in the background you see the stars kind of aligning in a shooting star. You have the same really, and then of course this one is very, very distinct. It's like, you know, he has all of the same elements. The wand is actually burning in this one, like the candle. And then the red in his cloak, in his cape, definitely is this bright, vital red. And it's interesting how red, if you just think about the color, when you think about the color red, it is, you know, when when blood is fresh, it is vital. It's what feeds us, it's what pumps through your heart. You know, when you think of when someone kisses your lips, all the blood rushes to your lips and they become red. And you think about the 1940s lipstick and the siren red. It's kind of it's a symbol of vitality, of seduction, of allure, of passion. It's definitely, you know, a sign of the color. It represents Aries. And what you see here especially, and okay, and this is probably something I've just now noticed too, is if you look closely at his belt, it's a little hard to tell in the Rider-Waite Smith because it's been reproduced so many times that it's some renditions of the Rider-Waite Smith get a little blurry. But if you look closely, you can tell it's a snake biting his own tail. And the symbolism of that is the beginning and the end, the Omega, the Alpha and the Omega. And snakes, in a lot of symbolism, can mean several things. They usually mean resurrection with the shedding of the skin and the becoming something new. They can mean healing, like if I'm saying it right, the caduceus, that's in medical terms, it's the two snakes intertwined. In chakras, the two snakes intertwined that look very similar are the Kundalini. And then it's also the sign of Mercury, if you go by, which is the communication god. But you see here that the magician has all of these elements. He is the beginning and the end. He is civilization and he is nature. And basically what it tells us is that the fool has grown. He has gone out into his environment and he has learned that he's a soul in his body, but then there are material things outside of him. There are thoughts, which are the swords. There are wands, which is the spirit and action. There are pentacles, which is the physical, the earth, the fiscal, the money that can buy you things. And then there are the cups, which is the emotion and the sense of heart and soul. And he has, when you look at the candle and the position, he has learned how to integrate spirit and physical world. He can control it. And we've talked a lot in my weekly energies readings, we talked a little bit about creative visualization, like how it's interesting how it's funny. We humans are animals. We are animals just like anything else. The only thing that separates us from, you know, dogs and cats and koala bears is that we have a brain and we have the ability to communicate. And you know, I just pieced that together. The snakes on Mercury's staff, which is Mercury is the communication, the sense, the ability to talk. But at the seminar I attended over the weekend, we talked about that too. It's like, it's amazing how humans, we think we're separate from nature because we have consciousness. But the interesting thing is that we're not separate from nature. We are all stardust, right? You know, the universe is made up of molecules, and we are made up of the same stuff. You know, if you believe in the Big Bang Theory, or even if you believe in creation, you know, if we are created by God, the same elements that are in trees, that are in animals, that are in everything around us is in us too. And we have the ability to call on that, to call. And here, the magician is the co-creator with spirit. He is able to take those elements, those things on the table. And remember, the lily and the rose, I kind of think of the Marine slogan that says, I never promised you a rose garden, and he's in a rose garden. There's lilies there too, but again, lilies mean maturity. Actually, lilies can also represent kind of, they can represent sexuality as well, and the amount of red, and you know, it's very, the magician can control his environment by channeling. As above, so below. and you see the candle burning at both ends, it basically means that he can manifest things. He has learned, you know, the Fool has grown up, has had enough time on earth to learn how to take these elements and create something new. And in addition to creating something new, and when you look at it, the 4 elements are it's the aces. When we get into the Minor Arcana, you're going to see those. You're going to see the Ace of Pentacles, you're going to see the Ace of Wands, the Ace of Swords, the Ace of Cups. And the aces are powerful. They are the seeds, they are the first, the beginning. The Ace of Pentacles is the beginning. You go, you know, you start with the Ace of Pentacles, you plant that seed of financial prosperity, and it later becomes the 10 of Pentacles. You, in baby steps, you get to the end, you get to the conclusion, and 10s are conclusions. And you're going to hear a lot of readers talking about the 10-10 gate too. What it is that, actually it's 2019, yeah. So October 10th, and then when you look at 2019, 1 + 9 is 10. So it's 10, 10, 10. And so it's the closing out of a cycle. And I can also tell you from the astrology side, Saturn has been in Capricorn, and it is finally making its last pass. By April of next year, it's going to completely leave that sign, and then it won't be back again for another 30 years. Or it takes about 2.5 years to go through a sign. So yeah, it'll probably be about 35 years before we see it again. You might see it in your lifetime, but it'll be a while. But yeah, so these are the beginning elements. So, and then I also kind of think of burning the candle at both ends. This character has, just like a magician, just like you see a magic trick, only it's not illusion, it is real magic. He has the ability to channel the universe, and he's a conduit. You know, as above, his hand up and his hand down puts the energy from the universe through him to the physical world. And it is a lot of creative visualization, but it is also using the elements, using the skills, using the seeds here on earth to get maturity, to get knowledge, to get what you want. And when you see the magician, for that reason, he is a powerful character, just like the Fool is beginnings. And it's that really uninhibited, you know, go out into the world. The magician is the I. He is I. He is me. He is I create. And he's there's certain astrology signs associated. I do not think that he is Aries. I know the Emperor is Aries, and we'll be getting to him too. There's a lot of red in him too, but he's the creator. And the other thing that's interesting and that is very Aries-like is that he's conscious of only, you can see that there's no other people, there's no other persons in this card. The magician stands alone. And he's very self-aware, and it is almost like the stage of his development. He has learned that there is an infinity. If you look at what's tying his cloak together, it's the infinity symbol. If you look above his head, it's the infinity symbol. He's learning the in and out, the flow of life, and he knows how to use it. He knows how to channel energy. He knows how to use those elements. Now, the beauty of that is when you get the magician, it means that everything you need is right there in front of you, just waiting to be manifested. And that's a very strong, I know, anytime I'm about to start a project, getting the Fool is great, but getting the magician, ooh, you feel powerful. And when you look at that card, he is powerful. I mean, look at that. This one's kind of neat. This is the set. I love Morgan-Greer because it's kind of the 70s. Everybody's got like a handlebar mustache. It looks great, you know. The lovers in that deck almost looks like the 70s. A Star Is Born. It's like very a lot of beard. but I also love how, again, in most characterizations, not so much in this one, not so much in the vice versa, his hair is long. And, you know, it kind of reminds you, you know, you see musicians who had a very clean cut image at first, had really short hair, and then, you know, later it's almost a sense of rebellion. It's like almost a sign of growth. Okay, I'm letting my hair get below my ears because I'm not a child anymore, you know? And but the magician is like that. And again, the snake, it's the beginning and the end, and the candle, so as above as below. He knows he's the conduit, but he not only is the conduit, he doesn't just let things happen, he channels it and wills it and makes it happen. So with that interpretation, the magician is powerful. When you see that come up in a reading, it means that someone is manifesting something. This can usually sometimes mean, depending on where it is in a spread, it can mean someone's manifesting you. If you really want something in your life, we talked about creative visualization, imagining that you have it and going after it. Also, you know, if you're doing something at work, or if you're doing something, if you're starting anything, and you are kind of putting your full passion and force, and, you know, I want this to happen. I know this will happen. I'm able to make this happen. And, you know, I know God and the universe, I'm praying for it. I'm channeling this. I'm putting my energy into it. I'm following the steps. You're going to, almost like the magician, you're going to make it happen. Now, when you look at it in reverse, and this is also kind of fun. We're going to go with the vice versa deck first, because, again, remember I told you how the back of the deck is the, when you look at the back of him, you see kind of the tree of life on the back of his cloak. And you also see the sunset, and you see the stars in the background. Now, again, his hair is a little shorter in this, but when you look at the reverse of the magician, the wand is still burning at both ends, except it kind of looks like everything's about to fall off his table, right? It looks like everything's kind of up in the air. And the typical interpretation of the magician in reverse, or when it's blocking something, is manipulation. It means that someone is using their power, or using the power of the universe, or kind of using their personal force, their personal magnetism, their personal understanding of how things work, to either, I won't say a malicious end, but to a self-serving end, because remember, again, we have the I. So sometimes when you see a magician blocking something or upside down, that's usually definitely, and again, it's always read with other cards around it, but it's typically interpreted as being someone who is using their power to an end is either self-serving or meant to get what they want, and not so much with the thought of anybody else in mind. It is going to be kind of, you know, again, not malicious, but probably, you know, not really, because the other part of the magician is that he is the conduit, right? He's supposed to be working in conjunction with the universe, or in conjunction with karma. And if you kind of say, okay, I'm going to make this power about me, I'm gonna, you know, I'm going to make this money and keep it all, and not pay it forward, or not, you know, if you do things, if you learn the magic, and then you do not either use it for the right purpose, then you are, you know, going to be exhibiting the negative of the magician. And it's a powerful card. And again, I highly encourage, if you ever want to just kind of freeze frame or pause the video, you know, just look at the symbols in it, or Google your favorite deck, or, you know, Google different decks online, and just kind of stare at the picture. I really, you know, the traditional Rider-Waite Smith is the cornerstone. It's the one that all you know, most tarot readers learn on and learn from. So, but you know, yeah. So, you know, he's a powerful guy, and again, you know, he learns that his physical body can take on the energy of the universe and can apply it to physical things in the realm to be the seeds of everything that you would need in this life, in this human physical life. So, you know, let's go ahead, and so that wraps up the description part of the How to Tarot. Now, I am going to post timestamps in the bottom below in the description box. So if you want to skip straight to your reading, you don't have to go through this, but I always think it's nice. It never hurts to look at the symbols. I think that's the most important part of the tarot, right? So I'm going to go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and put this under here, and I'm going to do every week I do a freeze frame of the cards with the stones beneath. I ask that you choose from your intuition, so I'll kind of go with a gut instinct. I know a lot of people, and everybody has a different style of choosing a pile. You know, some people go with, you know, a particular area of their stomach or their chest. They say, okay, I feel it behind my rib cage or behind right where my heart is. With favorite number, I only do 3 piles. That's going to change when we get close to Halloween. Wink, wink. There's fun readings coming up where we'll have more piles. But I also encourage that, I mean, it's great to have a favorite number. Like if you always say, oh, I always pick up pile number 1, but you may want to look at different elements. Like if you look at each pile and just kind of see if you kind of feel like a magnetic pull, either that or if you like the stone, and we'll keep changing those up as well. But let me go ahead and show you your piles, and I'll let you choose. You'll have 10 seconds to choose. Otherwise, if you want to pause the video and have some more time, please do so. All right. Okay, so I hope you've had enough time to choose. Again, if you need to pause the video, please do so. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put our magicians right on top of the deck so we have space. And let me put that stone to the side. So to begin, we're going to go with your magician from Rider-Waite Smith. So pile number 1, this is your magician. And what we're doing is we're pulling this reading to see how you magician, how does this manifest for you? How does a magician, oh here, let me do this. Oh, sorry, I just thought of this. Let me go ahead and, can you see that okay? How does that look? Kind of cutting his head off. All right. We'll work this out. Okay, so this is your card. And the one thing is, yeah, okay, we'll get to that when we get to that. We'll cross that bridge. There are a few decks. Oh, thank you. We're going to keep this to the side a minute because I was kind of talking at the time. But there are a few decks that kind of have this. There's certain cards that are all have a little nudity, like the Star. She's always a naked lady. So there are a few decks that have nudie bits, and in particularly the vice versa, pile 3, you have nudie bits. And so I do have little. I have little happy emojis. So. I'm sorry, you guys, but I have to keep the video PG-13, or at least PG. If I ever do a video that talks about, you know, like more seductive things, then, you know, we're gonna, if we have a video that talks about more seductive things, then I will make it strictly 18 and over. All right, so let's do this. I'm gonna make notes of these cards here. Okay. All right. So pile number 1, how do you magician? How does the magician resonate or manifest for pile number 1? How do we manifest? How does the magician manifest for pile number 1? Again, I'm just checking our time here. Okay. Last cards. Now let me do this. There are 3 cards here, and I like to go with the flyer kind, so I'm just going to do it this way. And I'm going to use these two cards in conjunction. These will be the main energy. Well, these will be the main energies. This will be the descriptor, and this one will stand alone. So how does pile number 1, how do we Magician? And please don't get afraid if you see any of the kind of major cards. Again, symbols speak to you, and they're not any bad cards in the tarot. They're just interpreted a particular way. So let's go ahead and see what ooh. Okay. You didn't see it, but it flipped open and it tapped. It did this. And when it does that, that says boom. And and that's how it shows up. Okay. And again, I'm going to work with this lighting. I know there's a little bit of a glare. That's part of the problem, is we don't have the natural light like we normally do. How does pile number 1? How do we Magician? Oh, all right. And to give a little bit of background, the Nova cards, they are modern images, and as you'll see, there is both black and white, and then there are red versions. And there are, for every image, there's a black and white version, and then there's a red, kind of a maroon red image. And there's only one card that does not have a parallel, and that is the gift. And the reason that it doesn't have a parallel is because I'm sorry if I got on camera just now. I try not to let you see me because you really don't have to see me, and I look a little bit of a mess because I've been traveling. So, but that's the beauty about being a reader, is you don't have to be on camera. But so the gift is the freebie card, because there is no negative. So what it does is the black and white is the interpretation of the card, and the red is the inverse, almost like an upside down, or almost like a vice versa. And that's kind of why I paired this card with this deck, is that it has, you know, both images except for the gift. The gift is in itself, by itself. So pile number 1, how do you Magician? So the way that it kind of came out is these three cards came out very specific. These two came out specifically on their own, and then these three came in together. So the way that I kind of see that you Magician is, let me just get the energies here. Now you have the Knight of Swords. So when you Magician, you go in kind of fast. And the Knight of Swords is the mental guy. He's ideas, he's thoughts, and what I kind of get from that, and behind him, or the first card, is the 7 of Pentacles. Now the 7 of Pentacles, if you look at him, and again, I want you to kind of make your own assumptions. I'm doing your reading, but the images are for you to interpret. The 7 of Pentacles, you can see he's a farmer, and he's kind of evaluating his stock, right? There's one pentacle that's fallen on the ground, and you kind of think, if you think of tomatoes, or if you think of apples, you're like, oh, okay, the ones that are on the ground are the ones that are actually ripe enough to be harvested. But the rest of the pentacles are kind of on the tree, and you can see he's kind of scrutinizing it. He's kind of going, nah, those are not quite as big as I wanted them to be yet. You know, don't have quite as much wealth as I wanted yet. And so what I get from these two cards together is that I think that you have wonderful ideas when you Magician. You get an idea and you say, I'm going to make this manifest. I'm going to make this viable. I have this great idea. Let's do it. And you get into it and you get started with it. And then halfway through, you kind of think, and again, you know, swords are thoughts and ideas, and then pentacles are they can mean money, but most of the time it means physical, the real, the grounded, what you can taste and touch and hold. And so I'm kind of getting the impression that when you Magician, when you manifest things, you have wonderful ideas. You have, and they're viable ideas. They're good ideas. But what happens is you rush into it head first. You say, oh, I have this great idea. Sorry, there's a truck going by. The same guy goes by different times of the day, and it sounds like he has no muffler, but I think he modified his card to sound that way. I don't know how he has any hearing left, because it's that loud, and I'm in a building. Anyway, sorry, rant over. But you when you get an idea, you go head first into it. You really charge ahead and you say, let's do it, which is that's fine. You got a big idea, go for it. But then sometimes when you actually get into the physical of it, when you take that pentacle off the table and you plant it and you grow it, you start to go, this is taking a little longer than I anticipated. Why is it taking this long? There's only one pentacle that's fallen on the floor, and I was excited about this. I was raring like this is going to be the greatest thing, and it is the greatest thing, and it is giving you a good product. But then halfway through you kind of look at it and think, this is really taking longer than anticipated. What should I have started this? Is this what I want to do? Because it's taking a lot of time and it's taking a lot of energy, right? And you talk about passion and red and energy, right? And remember, this guy is only one step up from the Fool. He's been around a while. But then you go into the second thing, and what you see also Pentacles, which is also physical. This is the Four of Pentacles, and this is the guy who I kind of refer to this as my Ebenezer Scrooge card. And it's not bad. It just means that, just like you see, he has a crown on his head, and he's kind of wrapped up in fine clothes. I'm assuming that's faux fur too, to be politically correct. But he has really nice things. And you can kind of see that he's not letting go of those things. He's holding on to it. And then in front of him, you see the Two of Pentacles. Oh, I'm sorry, the Two of Wands. And I had talked about the Two of Wands before, and actually earlier, the Three of Wands came out. And the Three of Wands is kind of the New Horizons card. It's kind of the waiting for the fruits of your labor to come in. It's kind of similar to the Pentacles in a way. But the Two of Wands, you see that this man is also well dressed. He has the same red cloak. Look at that. And look at the hair too, because he has his back turned, so you're not sure. Is that the magician? Is that the magician up a little further along on his journey? Different clothes, but same cape, right? But if you look closely, this man is up, and look, roses and lilies. Ooh hoo hoo. I love synchronicities. I'm sorry, that's going to be my slogan. I love synchronicities. But you'll see that he's up in a turret in a castle. And being up in a castle, and it's kind of like being in the penthouse suite, right? He has a globe in his hand. He has the world in his hand. And one of the wands, and wands means spirit. It means your kind of philosophical spirit, but it also means action and energy. It's what the passion in which you go out into the world and do things. You see that one of the wands is, and if you think of it, that's kind of the Ace of Wands. And it is bracketed to the side of the turret. He doesn't have to hold it. He doesn't have any hands on it. It's attached to the castle. And in the background, you see this beautiful landscape. I'm looking down at mountains. I've got a lake. He's got a lake. I mean, seriously, that's a nice pad he's got there. And the second wand is, you can see the second one he has in his hand, and it's almost like a walking stick. And he has it up on that ledge, almost like he wants to take a step off that ledge and jump into the lake or something. He's ready to go out into the world. But he already has that wand bolted there. He's got a lot already. So what I'm seeing here is that when you create something, you start off by creating it, and then you think, okay, I've gotten into the middle of this, and it's kind of slow going now. And what if you get another idea? You get a new idea, He already had the one, wand, and now he's got a new one in his hand, ready to go. He kind of doesn't want to, I read that as not wanting to let go of your previous idea, but then not wanting to, you want to go out into the world and try other new ideas. And wants are definitely, I wouldn't call them fickle. It's not like that. It's just you are passionate. You're the entrepreneurs. I mean, if you've ever seen a lot of Aries, Leo, Sagittarians, they are the go-getters. They go out into the world and they start things, they do things. And so it's not impossible for you to start one empire, get into the middle of it, and then say, well, I don't really want to sell this company. I don't want to give it over to anyone. But then I have this other wand and I kind of, do I want to go out into the world with this new idea after I've already had this really great idea? It's just taking me a little while. And then the last manifestation of it is the moon. And with the moon, we've talked about the moon. I actually went on this long lament on a blog post once. The moon is a very mysterious card. You have 2 towers, and 2s represent decisions too. He has a choice here, right? And you see, you got 2 wands, and you got 2 towers, and you got 2 wolves or dogs. And what's happening here is you see that there's a path between the 2 wolves, and you see the moon raining down. It looks like it's crying. And then in the water you see a crustacean coming out, and then there's a path up into the mountains. The moon is uncertainty. It's it can be instinct and intuition, but a lot of time it's just a lot of churning unconscious. It can be fear, but most of the time it's just churning unconscious. Should I do this? What do I want? What do I want to do? And I had it pointed out to me that it was interesting. Crustaceans, they purify water. They purify water. I'll tell you later when we get to the moon card, more description about it. But basically, the way that you magician is, you are a good manifester. You're a very strong one. You go in very fast. You have good ideas. But then what happens is you kind of get into the middle of the idea, and then another stroke of genius, another lightning bolt from above will hit you, and then you don't want to let go. You don't want to let go of your first idea. But then you kind of don't want to be shackled to it forever. What if it starts to get kind of stagnant? And then you get a little emotionally torn. You get like, okay. Then I think the other part of the moon too is feeling like the moon is, it's kind of like smoke and mirrors. Oh my gosh. And we're talking about a magician, about illusion and like, ooh, sleight of hand. But what I kind of think of, and this kind of plays into it, is that with the moon, in astrology, the sun is your ego and the moon is your emotions. And a lot of times you want to identify with the ego. You want to identify with the I, right? And when you go out into the world, what identifies you more than your projects, right? When you do something, you identify with it. It becomes part of your persona. It becomes part of you. And then what happens when you get, it's just not panning out, or it just doesn't, it's not as strong, and you don't want to let it go. You don't want to say that it wasn't your idea. It was your idea. But then if it's just kind of fizzling out, then you kind of, it almost becomes a death of the ego, or the death of the self, by saying, okay, that was either, you don't want to label it a failed project. You don't want to label it a failed project, but you also maybe don't want to continue doing it anymore. Now, the red blank, and I'm just going to reference this again. This was really wonderful. When I bought these cards, I actually spoke to the creator. He was so nice. I asked him questions about it, and this is probably the most intuitive deck that I know. You got kind of a blank card, but if you've ever watched Dick Tracy, there was a character named the Blank. But the red blank warns that there is something missing, emptiness. Ask what would fulfill the situation. And oh wow, emptiness, there's a blank, there's a negative blank. I think here, and if you look on his face, I think you might manifest something, and then when you do it, might not be as fulfilling, and that's okay. That's okay. You know what they always say, or, sometimes when I create things, I'll have a dud. Like, I'll have a bag that doesn't turn out right, or like even in this reading, I'm feeling a few moments of kind of, just lack. If something doesn't work out well, it doesn't make it a failure. It doesn't make it a loss, because it taught you something, right? You wouldn't know how to grow pentacles unless you had planted the first one, right? If you never had that idea and never followed that idea, if you never just went with it, now again, if it's not bringing you fulfillment, and let's go ahead and look at your other oracle card, because I think this really sums it up. You got exhaustion. And remember how I told you that these are kind of the real deck? This is similar to, this deck is similar to my other one, except it is definitely touches on more the real. It talks about overload, workaholism, and overdrive. And here it says, your divine helpers are here advising you that while it's essential that you do everything in your power to fulfill your goals, it's equally important to know when to back off and allow the universe to work its magic on your behalf. You've done enough. Allow these beautiful and highly competent guides to step in and take over. Your enthusiasm is your gift, but unless it's properly contained, it can undermine your best intentions. Oh, wow. Your enthusiasm is your gift. But if you do not let the universe, if you do not let that lightning bolt go through you to the ground, you're going to overwork yourself. You don't have to do it all. So I think that's beautiful. Honestly, I think you got a good reading. I know this seems kind of, it's not dreary. How many people do you know that can have excellent ideas like that? You are this man. You were this man in that cloak, and you were coming. Ideas are such a rare commodity. I mean, when you think about it, it's like, the person who created the air conditioner, the elevator, if you do not come up with your ideas, and honestly, what was it they always say about Thomas Edison? He had like something like over 2,500 tries before he created the light bulb. If you do not have trials and failures, then, and honestly, it also, if you don't kind of I think here, when we talk about creative visualization, if you sometimes have to delegate, or maybe even, and here, the Two of Wands, he's thinking about it, he's thinking about whether or not to try something new. So here, I think it's just telling you, you don't have to do everything. You can manifest things without going so hard. And I think it also gives you permission to dabble. I think it gives you permission to dabble. Because the other thing is, things that are fulfilling in life are the things that bring your life meaning. If the moment that something stops being meaningful to you, it's okay to quit. It's okay to quit. Either that, or I think also what it's telling you is how can you take the seeds of that? That in gardening, anything that is a failure, you can plant back into the ground, and it will give nutrients to the ground to grow something else. I know it's like my family, we have farmers in our family, and they talk about all the time that they'll plant one type of plant, and then when that plant has wilted, or if they have any, bad tomatoes, you grind it up, put it back into the soil, and you grow something else. So here it's kind of telling you to let go and just kind of let your ideas, how can your ideas morph? How can your failures teach you something that'll give you skills to do something that is parallel and different, that you would not know to do or have the ability to do unless you had those failures. So that was your reading, pile number 1. Wow, that was fantastic, by the way. I think you're a very powerful magician. Honestly, that was cool. So we'll go ahead, and I hope you love those cards. I love these cards, and you'll see in the next reading how they kind of, oh, sorry. Let me give you space. We'll put that there. And put your magician on top. All right, pile number 2. You got the lapis lazuli, and you had the Morgan-Greer Magician. Okay, so we got the Morgan-Greer. I'm gonna go ahead and put this here, and oh shoot, I forgot your dice. Okay, we'll do dice next time. This one is a little bit. All right, so pile 2, how do you magician? How do we magician? And again, I'm trying to keep these concise. The how do tarot ones go a little bit longer than a regular reading, but that's okay. How does pile 2 magician? How does pile 2 magician? Thank you. 1. How does pile 2 magician? Oh, hold on, that's a little too many. I'm sorry, guys. If we're meant to have it, it'll come back, I promise you. It always does. Pile 2, how do you magician? Okay. It seems to want to give 4. All right, let's do it this way. Okay, because the last pile got descriptors too. Okay, let's do it that way. This time it's kind of the reverse. So the first 2, no. All right, we're rolling with it. All right, let's go ahead and do your oracle card. And again, these are the ask your spirit guide oracle cards. They're very real. They keep it real. Pile 2. You saw that, right? Oh. I've had that card before. Again, I'm glad I chose that deck for this reading because it's real deal, Holyfield. It does not lie. It's still kind. It doesn't sugarcoat anything, but it's still kind. And I just saw, we just hit 55 minutes and 55 seconds on the clock as well. All right, pile 2, magician. Okay, and again, I'm trying to be fair. They were kind of, I'm deciding here. Okay, one last shuffle. I want to be very fair and not have too many cards. How does pile 2, how do they magician? Please give me the information for how do they magician. You saw that, right? You saw that. That's what I love about shuffling on camera. I'm just making sure my camera's not hanging up on us. It likes to do that sometimes. All right. And we're gonna do that behind and front. Okay, let me go ahead and get, it's pile number 2, Morgan-Greer, favorite deck ever, best deck ever. Okay, and I warn you, as I get warmed up, I get goofier, so, maybe we should keep these videos short. All right, so let's go ahead and get the interpretation. Page of Pentacles. 9 of Swords, you got another Knight of Swords. Described by the Hierophant. 5 of Cups. King of Pentacles. You have Pentacle energy. Let me go ahead and I'm just going to read this real quick. I just want to double check. Last pile, there are little numbers as well on the oracle cards. Like this one is 19. You can see that. Come on, focus, please. Thank you. All right, and the last deck, the oracle card was a 20. I didn't overlook that. Now here, I believe that the page is a novice. Kind of like the Fool, they are usually depicted as children or younger, kind of messenger-esques. And here you see that he is going out into the world with a pentacle. So a lot of times the Page of Pentacle means that there is kind of, it's a message of abundance. It's a message of physical wealth. And it's kind of, it can be seen as someone bringing a gift. But here I am kind of reading with it being the way that you magician. I think that you are practical in the way that you magician. I think you are the type that would, when you begin a project or when you want to manifest something, you would want to be, you would have, I'm getting this, you'd want to have the backing. You'd want to have the money, and you'd want to know that it was a sound investment. So while it is new, while the idea is fresh in your head, you would kind of, it's not an air card, it's not a sword, but we're about to get to swords. But what you would do is you'd want to make sure that it would be lucrative. I'm seeing that. Okay, I have this great idea, but before I pour all my money into it, before I pour all my time into it, would it work? Would it actually, could I actually do it and quit my day job? That's what I kind of see this. You would investigate it like a student, like a novice. You would look into it before you endeavored to go full force into it, and that's how you would manifest it. That's how you would begin the manifestation. You'd say, okay, what does this involve? What are the physical elements? How do I do this? And you would do that from a very beginner's mindset. Now, as you go along, that's where you get excited. You're going to start getting excited. You see the Knight of Swords there. Now, as you go along, and you test it out, your idea is chugging along, and you kind of got it going, then you would start to get really, I'm seeing this, and the Knight of Swords they're given the missions. The Knights are the people who go through and do. And here I'm seeing that this Knight would, he would make sure, he would start actually getting verbal about it. Like, okay, I've learned, I've created this, I've patented this thing, I know it works. Now I want to go out and really push it. I speak up about it. Once you're confident and you know that this would actually work, that's when you start getting animated about it. You would start to really start putting your full backing into it. Now, the other thing is, this is kind of a pair. So the Hierophant he kind of looks like a pope kind of person. And below him you see the keys of knowledge, and you see he's kind of an authority. The Hierophant rules religious places and religious confines. And you would think, okay, how in the world does that pertain to me starting something or manifesting something in the world? What this tells me is that when you start getting animated and start getting vocal about what you are doing, what you are manifesting, what you want to bring into the world, your confidence is going to work. You're starting to actually verbally believe it. And also the Knight of Swords is in your own head. You start, almost the gears are turning. You would want it to be socially acceptable. And that's the other meaning of the Hierophant. Anytime you would, again, you're very straight. I'm kind of seeing a straight-laced vibe about this. You would want it to be lucrative. You'd want it to actually work. Then when you start getting steam behind it, you wanted it to be functional. You'd want it to be accepted by society. You wouldn't want to create something that wouldn't actually be of service, something that would actually work. Nothing taboo. So here again, I just kind of see that when you manifest, you kind of want it to be on the level and something that would actually work and be of use, or also accepted by all. Because when you think about it, this really says that to me. You would want it to be something that in mass is the standard, nothing avant-garde. Now, in the final phase of it here, when you manifest, here I can kind of see that, again, kind of like making sure that something is sturdy and a good idea. The Five of Cups is kind of one of the sadder cards, and what it is you kind of see in the background, this guy has kind of left a castle in the background to go down to the riverbed, and you see 3 spilled cups, and behind him is 2 standing cups. Here, and then, so this is what's behind him. This is the card behind. Now, the front card is the King of Pentacles. And I just want to point out, you started off as a page, and then you became a king. You followed your path all the way. You started with the manifestation. You started with the 1 pentacle. You started with the 1 pentacle, and you made that pentacle into an empire. He's not the emperor, but he is the King of Pentacles. He's almost like that grandfather. He's the young version of the grandfather that's in the Ten of Pentacles. He has abundance. He has it all. He's arrived. And I think what it's saying here is that you kind of walk the line. You walk the line. You started the right way. You planned it. You tested it. You got excited about it. You made sure it was socially acceptable. And then I think your biggest fear or the pitfall of your magician is that cups are emotion. Cups are emotion. So while you're putting physical into it and you're putting mental into it, are you putting your heart into it? That's what it's saying. And with the 3 spilled cups, and the 3 of Cups is that celebration card. It's like being out and being celebrated. The 2 of Cups is more, it can be read in a romantic sense, but it's, here I'm reading as 2s can be choices, 3s are that completion. It's like mother, father, child, mind, body, spirit. And here the fact that they're cups and he kind of looks like he's mourning over what was spilled makes me think that, you know, and a lot of Pentacles, especially the King of Pentacles, he's typically seen as a Taurus. Doesn't have to be sun sign, it can be moon sign or something else. Sometimes he can be seen as a little bit of a Capricorn. And the way I'm kind of reading that is it's a little bit lonely at the top. So the only pitfall and the only thing that you would want to think of is that if you are creating something or if you're manifesting something in this world and it's so widely accepted and it's functional and it makes you lots of money, for all of that, for all of the money it's bringing you or all the abundance that it's bringing you physically, does it make you happy? Is it filling your cup? That would be the only thing, because the other thing that you see here is that the cup in the Magician is red. It's more of that lifeblood, that vitality. And look at the spilled cups. They're all red too. It's almost like, I think, you know, let's go into your oracle cards, but I think this one's a very powerful one. And the fact that it's kind of saying, now, I mentioned that I've read this card before, and I'm also just going to reference the book a little bit just so we can get an idea. But I really want you to look at the symbolism there. You see 2 hands from above, and remember we talked about the Magician being the conduit of the universe. And this man's sitting in a boat, and it looks like he has a helicopter light on him, like he's about to be rescued, right? And the boat is red. It's kind of a pinky red, but it is more of that vital red color, and there's sharks all around him. And it speaks of suspicion, endurance, vigilance, and perseverance. Now, the other thing with Pentacles, they are the slowest in the Arcana. The Knight of Pentacles is the slowest moving knight. And what it is the Pentacles are slow moving, but they're steady. They're plodding, and every step they take is grounded. They're very grounded. But here it's saying, for the survival card, what it's telling us is, your healer guides surround you and lovingly embrace your momentarily injured spirit. They want you to recognize that all attacks, betrayals, or injuries you've suffered, whether they were through unconscious behavior of others or through your own misunderstanding or poor choices, have left you psychologically wounded and fragile. It's no wonder your guard is up. It's difficult to trust even yourself at this time, but you must. And the only way to do so is stop blaming yourself or others for what has occurred and forgive all the way around. Learn from your experiences and strengthen your boundaries and judgment. So here, there's a 90s song by Jewel. And I think it's like something like In God's Hands. And I think of that because they look like the hands of the universe. They look like the hands of God. And she says something about like being in God's hands. And the line in that song that really speaks to me is she goes, I somehow got stuck on survive. And I think we live in a very material world. I think we live in a world where money and security is important, and it is important. But sometimes when you are busy dotting your I's, crossing your T's, you know, doing the little curly Q on your Q's, you might be pleasing, you know, the system, but you may be reacting to some kind of psychological need for security, and that it's very root chakra based too. If you believe in chakras, I'm just learning them. I'm not the best at them yet, but it kind of means that security has become ingrained, that you must have that above all else, even above your own happiness or what you would want. And again, I think with the five is change. And didn't I say a minute ago it said 5555? Look at that. And the Hierophant is a 5. Oh, goodness. It's a V5. Any other synchronicities? I mean, 1 + 9 is 10. But I'm seeing here, and what it's saying to me is that, you know, you're afraid of change. You would rather stay with the status quo and stay safe, but sometimes safe doesn't bring fulfillment. And we talked about the other pile too. In the other pile I said, whatever fulfills you, the meaning of life is whatever you find meaningful. Happiness in life is when you find meaning in your life. And let me go ahead and read the door real quick. And you have, I told the other deck, this is the Nova deck. It's a vintage deck that I had the pleasure of acquiring from the author, the artist. It's a 1970s deck, and he had extra copies that he was selling on eBay. And it's an incredible deck. What it is it has a black and white version of the card, and it has a red version, or burgundy maroon color. And the red is the negation. And this is going to be kind of fun in a minute when we do the vice versa. But the red is the negation, and the negation is the negative or the inverse, and then the black and white is the, you know, the regular. Now let's go ahead and read your door real quick. Stands for fortunate transition or promising opportunity. Go for it. So again, I'm not really, you know, I'm not seeing like any doors in this. I am seeing buildings. I'm seeing the castle in the background, like in the Ace of Knight of Wands, you see a castle there, and in the background you see a castle, but he's kind of come down. It's almost like when he was gung-ho when he had the idea, and then later you can see it's almost like he, you know, restored the castle, lived there, and then later came down to the riverbank to, you know, to mourn his spilled cups, and you can tell, you know, it's a profile picture, but he is the Pentacle. He's the King of Pentacles at this point. But I think here, the way that you Magician, or the way that it's manifesting in your life right now, is you have a very powerful ability. You do it the right way. Anything that you endeavor to do, you know, that door is there. It's waiting for you. You know, you start it the right way. You do your homework, and then it's almost, I'm seeing like a progression too. It's like you start off small, and then you get stronger and stronger and stronger, and then you reach this kind of apex. And I think here it's just saying that's the right way to be. The only thing that it's cautioning against is that all of that opportunity is there. All of that opportunity is there. But when you do it, don't just do it for the money. Don't just do it to please, you know, the status quo, to please the man or the people. And not to sound morbid, but there's a great article that talks about the 5 things that you regret on your deathbed. And one of the 5 things is that you were pleasing other people too much. I mean, of course, you have to do what you got to do to get along in this world. But the Magician, again, he is I. He is I. He's not you or them or, you know, the world. He is I. And what's important to him is important. What makes him happy is important. And there might be 2 cups there behind him that are waiting to be discovered, that are things that, you know, he's crying over what he's lost. So I would say that, you know, just the pitfall would be don't give in to any base hurts possibly in your past, some insecurities, things that, you know, maybe you grew up in an environment that didn't have a whole lot of money, And so, you know, having that security is of the utmost importance, but it's not at the detriment of your happiness. It's not, you know, you don't have to get stuck on survive. You know, you have opportunities to do things that really, and you're very powerful at it. You're an excellent magician. And you see red cloaks, you see red in the pentacles. You see that page still has all of that red. He has all that passion and drive, and then you see all of the red. It's almost like he gives his cloak to the masses, to his goal, and then you don't see any red at all by the time he's the king. By the time he's the king, he's, you know, you see all the red spilled on the ground. And this isn't saying that you're going to have, you know, bad endeavors. Absolutely not. Everything. I mean, he's made it. He's made it. So your ability to manifest is excellent. The only thing it's saying is, you know, don't give in to any insecurities. Don't feel like the almighty dollar is what you have to have. You know, do things or go for, you know. Also, what it tells me is that you could even go for goals that just small goals after you've made your millions. You know, after you've made your millions, do a few small things. You know, do a few small things for yourself. You know. That make you happy. You don't have to get stuck in survival mode. Well, pile 2, thank you so much. That was your reading. And again, I had a feeling using these cards that it would get a little deep, but I'm really glad at the way that it turned out. All right, so we'll go into our last pile, which is the Vice Versa Tarot. And again, the Vice Versa Tarot, it has no formal back to it. The backs are the inverse or the upside down of the card. That's hence the name Vice Versa. And you got the Dalmatian Jasper. I love this stone, by the way. Yeah, it was gifted by a friend who tumbles stones, and it's so beautiful. I get so lucky. I got to choose from the lot of the batches that he does. Now, I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it since this is your deck. There are some cards. Now, in tarot in general, there are cards that have what I call naked bits. The Star, she is a naked woman. The World, she's also a naked woman. You don't see too much, and I don't mark these readings as only 18. I would only do that if we were talking about like really, sexual content, and we don't do that in general readings, not yet. But this deck in particularly, there's a few cards, just regular cards, that have some gossamer dresses that, if needed, I do have. I will have to put an emoji face over some naked bits if necessary. So just be warned. I have the emoji faces at the ready. Sorry to deny you a cheap thrill, but we got to keep this PG-13, or my channel's new. I'm not trying to be banned from Facebook. Okay, please, thank you. P.S. Public service announcement over. All right, pile 3. Oh, as I told you, we get to the end of the reading and I'm all loopy. Pile 3, how do you magician? How does my pile 3? How does our lovely viewers, my viewers, 5 subscribers. Oh, 5. I have 5 subscribers, and I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for you. Okay, so number 1, how does pile number 3, how do you, okay. And then last card, there was a large stack. Pile 3, how do you magician? Okay, and these two came out together. So I'm going to read them as I always do. Okay, no naked bits, no naked bits. All right, guys, no emojis for you today. No cheap thrills either. Sorry, maybe next time. We'll be using this deck again, so no. All right. That guy came in on pile 1, and I'll explain again. There's a dude who randomly drives down the street, and he sounds like he has no muffler, but apparently that's intentional. He's like souped up his engine to have some kind of nitrous oxide or some schnit. And I don't know how he has any hearing left, because he's loud as heck going down the street. Anyway, rant over. Pile 3, how do you magician? Okay, All right. And again, I've told the other decks too, ask the questions of your oracle guides, which is the oracle decks I'm using to clarify. They do get kind of real. Nothing scary or bad, but it just keeps it real. And because the magician is a real deal guy, he's a real deal, I went with that deck to clarify us. So from our Nova deck, and I explained to the other pile, this is a 1970 deck. It's vintage. I got it off eBay from the maker of the deck, which I was floored by, who is such a nice guy. And there are red or burgundy kind of cards, and they're black and white cards of the same image, and they're modern images. They're modern images. So like, you know, just to give you an idea. The black and white is the positive or the interpretation, and then the red is not negative, but it's the different, almost like the vice versa, the inverse. And there is one card that has no negative connotation at all, and that's the gift. The gift is a free, clear gift. So pile 3, how do you magician? How does pile 3 magician, or how does the magician manifest right now, or manifest in general in pile 3's life? How do they magician? How do they magician? All right. All right. And again, don't be scared. There are never any bad cards in tarot. There are never any bad cards in tarot. And so it's actually very interesting. Oh, cool. I like it. Okay. So the beginning of the reading is the 10 of Wands. And if you look at this guy, he has red on his shirt, but it's like a faded red. And if you look really carefully, the statue in the background almost looks like it's him, you know, but it's aged and weathered. And then he's got these 10 rods that he's carrying on his back. And he's not quite struggling, but, you know, if you've ever been pushing that wheelbarrow and you feel like, oh God, I'm never going to make it over this hill, that's kind of how he looks, right? And the sun is setting, and he's working so hard. The 10 of Wands is that working hard card. It's the I'm taking on too much kind of card. Now, the middle one, and again, there are no bad cards. Don't be afraid. You did get the Devil, and Devil is not the crazy card that people think it is. Believe me, it's number 13, and it looks a little bit more graphic in this image because this is the vice versa deck, and it's almost like Pixar kind of graphics. So we're going to go into that in a minute. But then the roundabout is you have the Temperance card, and this is probably the most beautiful card ever. The Temperance is mixing, and we'll get into that in a minute. If you look at her feet, and we've got more lilies there too. And then in front of it we have the 6 of Cups, and that's a really beautiful card, and we'll get into that in just a minute. So pile 3, the way that you magician. Oh, sorry if it got loud there for a minute. I'm leaning into my mic. Oh, do I sound like Don LaFontaine? Tarot. The beginning, the middle, the end. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, getting goofy. So the way that you magician is, I'm getting the sense right off the bat that you're kind of, when you manifest things, that you always go into it thinking that it's going to be a burden. And I don't mean that in a bad way. And that's probably a pretty good way. What's that saying that under promise, over deliver? That kind of makes me think of that. If you kind of know that something is going to be a challenge going into it, then you're less likely to, failure is not going to bother you so much, or at least hypothetically it won't bother you so much. It might tear you up, I don't know. But I think what's happening is when you go into a project, you kind of go in whole hog. If you endeavor to do something, or if you start to do something like manifesting something, you're very aware of the work that it'll entail. And just having that realization, knowing that going in, is a good thing. The downside, or the backside, if you want to look at the inverse of it, is just that you want to not discourage yourself either. A lot of the other readings that we had, and what you have to remember is he's pointing at the universe and he's pointing at the ground. This is not an all-human endeavor. When you manifest things, you do not have to do it all yourself. You don't have to carry all those rods by yourself. And then the middle card, so it's basically saying, you know, don't have that, oh, this is going to be so hard. If I go to do this, it's just going to be a pain and it's going to be heavy and I'm not going to want to carry all that. Because what happens is the devil is a card, and he looks like a fearsome card. But what you want to remember is that, and in the Rider-Waite Smith, I won't dig it out, but if you Google it, the one thing that you got to recognize about the devil is that if you look at it, it's depicted differently in this deck, but the chains around it almost looks like Adam and Eve. It looks like the lovers, but in kind of the dark sense. The chains around the two lovers' necks are very loose in the Rider-Waite Smith, not in this one. But what I see here is, one thing I notice off the bat is that these people are covering up themselves in shame. And if you know the story of Adam and Eve, after Eve takes the bite of the apple, they become aware of their nakedness and they become ashamed of it, right? And then you see also in this depiction, they have masks on. And again, this looks a little bit graphic, but it's really not as scary as it seems. The devil is about, it's about obsessions, it's about addictions, but above all, it's about fear. It's about fear. The devil's goal is to make you feel guilt, to make you feel shame, to make you put on a mask, to make you hide what you are, to make you feel like you're not worthy. It's like, it's everything that, it's an archetype. That's all any of these cards are. They're archetypes that describe something. And here I'm seeing that when you manifest, you have that table in front of you. Oh, sorry, it's been a traveling day. You have everything on the table in front of you. And when you go to endeavor to use those materials, you kind of discourage. I think the biggest problem is that you might discourage yourself. You might think, I'm not good enough. That's what I'm seeing when I see this. I'm not strong enough. I'm covering myself up. I'm putting on a mask. I'm not good enough to manifest, or I don't deserve it. Also the Magician, and I've talked about creative visualization before, but another big thing about it is that the universe, is in the Magician. He does not manifest these things on his own. He has the power of the universe helping him, and it not only gives him knowledge, it gives him wisdom as he goes through these challenges, but he also gains self-confidence. You look at the red, you look at the I, you look at the I create, I manifest, I did this. And he didn't do it alone. He has a shooting star behind him. And, he has everything that he needs in front of him. So when you get down to it, so it starts off with thinking this image of taking on too much, or it being too much to bear, too much to carry. And then you go into this image that's very negative, like I'm not good enough, or I'm ashamed, or I've got to put on this mask. And then the last cards are far more positive, and again, please don't get discouraged. Here, I see that once you get past this, once you get into the project, or when you actually start manifesting things in your life, if you can get past that mask, if you can get past that negativity and that sense of fear, whatever's holding you down, whatever's chaining you down, if you can get past those insecurities, you will go into Temperance and the Six of Cups. And Temperance is probably the most beautiful card there is. It's one of my favorites. It's an archangel who is mixing two cups, two elements, and she has one toe in the water and she has one toe on land. And water it's clean water, it's emotion, and then land is the grounding, it's the physical, it's almost the pentacle element. And the two cups that she's mixing is actually, in most depictions, it's fire and water, but it's the masculine and the feminine, but it is also, when you look at fire and water, it's wands and cups, which is emotion and spirit. It is, you are blending those two things together. And then when you look at the Six of Cups, most of the time the Six of Cups indicates kind of reunion. And honestly, temperance kind of means, I think of it as, I had a great reader describe it as recalibration. Recalibration. And here, you see, she almost looks like a mermaid. She's coming out of the water. I think, and again, it being a masculine and a feminine, and all these cups, I'm really reading this as when you manifest, when you take the elements off the table, you can get to this place of balance. That's the other thing that I see. I see like it's almost making peace. It's almost, what this makes me think of? There was a great meme, okay? There's a great meme on Facebook that says, I wrestle with my demons every day, but then some days we just cuddle. That's what I'm kind of thinking of. You have inner fears, you have inner demons, and they hinder you. These fears that if you went to take your pentacle, take your sword, take your cup, and the other thing is there's a lot of cups energy here. But I think what it's telling you is that you need to not be afraid. Either that or don't, there's a psychological thing, and I do it all the time. It's called stacking. It's catastrophizing. It's like, oh gosh, if I start this, what if I fail? What if this happens? What if, it's going to be too much? It's going to be too hard. I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not, I don't have enough money. If you balance this, and again, this is fire and water. Wands are fire. You see a lot of fire there. And then you're seeing water. You're seeing cups. If you recalibrate those two elements within yourself, if you say, I'm going to listen to my emotions, and I'm going to purify my emotions, and I'm going to purify my spirit, and I'm going to know that if I break this down, if I break any of these goals that I have, these things that I want to manifest, any goal in life, whenever it seems so big or so heavy, all you do is break it down into manageable pieces and start knocking out those pieces step by step. And he's going step by step, right? The load is heavy. It might be hard on him. I know there are people that I know that just have horrible anxiety whenever it comes to long-term goals. And I'm one of those people. I understand. But it's important to not let the devil make you believe that it's impossible. It's not impossible. You're a magician. You're a magician. Everybody has magician in them, and you have it in you. And all you have to do is, instead of thinking of this winged guy, think of this winged angel, and balance those two elements within yourself and say, I can do it. I can do it. All I have to do is, I know my heart, I know my spirit, I know I can do this. And again, those inner demons, kind of cuddle with them. Treat them like an old friend. Treat them like an old friend. And it is a lot of self-talk as well. You've read a lot of I've read a lot of self-help books that talk about, you notice how in your own head you would talk to yourself in a way that you would never, like if the voice in your head was talking to your best friend, if the voice in your head saying, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you can't do this, if that voice was a person saying that to your best friend, saying that to your sibling, to your mother, what would you do? You wouldn't it's a bully, right? It's a bully. You wouldn't let that bully talk that way to your mom. You wouldn't let that bully talk that way to your best friend. Well, why are you going to let that bully talk to you that way? Because it's deterring you. It would be deterring you from your manifestation. And again, I've said it before with creative visualization. You know, you do have to take action. It's not just going to come to you, but you do not want to, you got to believe that you can do it and start taking the steps. Now, we've got 2 cards here, and I don't want you to be afraid. This is actually one of my favorite cards. It says weapon, and it shows, and it's a 5. Gosh, we're getting a lot of 5s. There was more 5s in the last one, but oh my gosh. Now, the weapon is interesting, and I'm just going to read it real quick, and then we'll get onto your oracle card. The weapon symbolizes the positive aspects of power, a strong will and a directed focus. A strong will and a directed focus. And look at this. This man he is plowing away, right? You know, he is walking towards his goal. He's got a bunch of wands on his back, but he's not gonna give in. He's gonna keep going. When you and the magician does wing willpower too. It's the I can, I will, you know, that is amazing. So it's saying everything here. You can do it. You can do it. You can manifest whatever you want. Just know that. Also, the fact that this is an angel. And isn't it interesting that this angel almost looks kind of like the mermaid in the pond? You know, I forget when we get to the How to Tarot for Temperance, there is a name for the angel. I know in the Lovers it's the Archangel Michael, but in Temperance it's a different angel. It's not the same one. So we'll get the name of it. Now the last card to kind of wrap up your reading, it's card number 22, and it's denial. And again, I think this is going to play in pretty well with the rest of your reading. But let me go ahead, and we're just going to go over that real quick. Divine helpers, and I think just about every group got their card came from divine helpers, but it's confusion, distortion, ignorance, and compromise. Your divine helpers are here to help you take off your blinders and more honestly assess the difficulties in your intimate relationships. Although you'll prefer to believe that ignorance is bliss, the truth is that denial is not a river in Egypt, nor is it the genuine form of protection against unhappiness. Your guides gently ask you to summon the courage to honestly admit the real problems that exist. As difficult as they may be, until you do so, there's no chance that these shadows will ever heal. So, you know, it's like, I think here, again, this plays into it too, that we talked about, you know, you see in that devil card that he has 2 prisoners. He has 2 prisoners. And when you look at that, when you deny, when you don't, also I kind of see this as when you want to manifest things, if you are not seeing the end goal clearly, it makes it very difficult to manifest. That is one thing with creative visualization as well. You have to be kind of clear. You have to be kind of clear, and you don't have to be spot on, you know. You don't have to say that, you know, you don't want to control or micromanage the exact result, but you don't want to muddle it with a lot of negative self-talk or denial. If you are denying the fact that you can manifest things, or if you're denying the fact that certain advantages that, you know, again, if you're denying the fact that you are a gifted person, or if you're denying the fact that you are a beautiful spirit, or that you can do something. And whatever the goal is too, if you're manifesting a healthy relationship, if you're manifesting a good job, if you're manifesting a healthy home life, the first step, and again, it talked about having a directed will. I also think of kind of, you know, this is intention. This is you know, this is aim, and, you know, this is having an aim for something. I know it looks kind of weird being a gun. I don't, you know, condone guns, but here it's just kind of saying that one of the first steps of manifesting or bringing your magician to life is to getting very clear about your intention. You do, in order to channel that energy and have that universal and your own soul energy go into your projects and become what they are meant to be, the first step is clear vision. It's clear vision. And then you kind of see that too. You can see that the clear water and the purification of the water, the melding of the two energies, and also, you know, just kind of befriending your intention as well. And I also think it's good if you struggle with clarity as well. I think just praying also. I think divine helpers are, you know, if, you know, pray to God or pray to, you know, those spirits around you. You know, it could be loved ones, it can be, you know, a higher power. But I do think that if you need help, either seek out other people. I was thinking about this today too. You know, one time, a while back, I had actually done this exercise, and it was really an academic thing. I was filling out one of those surveys to best determine what major I should go for in college, because I didn't want to waste my money. I was like, okay, you know, I really want to go for, you know, a degree that really reflects what I'm good at. And it was interesting. I took one of those college assessment books. I borrowed it from the library. And in the back, there was a list of keywords. And what I did is I went through the list and I wrote down like 10 or 15 both negative and positive words that I felt described me as a person. And then I took that list, I typed it up and printed it out, made a bunch of copies, and I gave it out to my family and my friends. And I said, can you go through and circle the keywords that you most associate? You know me. What do you think is my personality? And it's amazing how much overlap there was. There was a lot of overlap. And between when I collected everything and I got it down to 3 keywords each. 3 positive keywords, 3 negative keywords. And it did help me find a degree that I wanted to go for. And it gave me the greatest clarity. And I think that would be, if that's something that you're interested in doing, if you feel like you might not know the best way to kind of get around these problems, or you don't know the best ways to kind of manifest your energy, why not do an exercise like that? Or you could just on the fly say, hey, could you tell me 3 of my strengths and 3 of my weaknesses, and write them down. Because when you talk about willpower and you talk about your ability to manifest things in the world, the things that will do that for you as an individual, as an I, are your strengths and your weaknesses. And no one knows you better than your family and your friends. So really, and honestly, this is a card of friendship too. It's a card, you know, it's funny, 6 of Wands talks about old friends. It talks about reunion with childhood friends. So I would think that would be something, because I'm seeing that you have the willpower. You have the willpower and you can manifest. And this is a Major Arcana. That's a powerful card. You can seamlessly recalibrate. You can bring anything, any goal, you know, love, you know, home, career, anything that you want to manifest in your life, you can definitely do it. But there is definitely there's a few demons. And there's just a sense that you're not good enough. And, you know, the best way to get around that is to get some clarity. Just get some clarity, and then break down, you know, get some clarity, set a goal, and then break down the steps into manageable pieces, and have, follow it with a willpower, which you have a great willpower, and there's no doubt that what you want will manifest and come to you. Okay, well, this reading went a little longer than expected, but I'm super proud of it. I'm always proud of these readings, and I promise next time we'll go with different decks. That was kind of a serious one, but honestly, the Magician is a serious card, and I wanted to give it due diligence. And we'll definitely. So this weekend is another weekly energies reading. On Saturday. It'll be a lot shorter because we don't have the intro, the descriptions of the Magician, or the How to Tarot. That's always a little longer because we do the talk about the symbols first. The weekly energies, I hope you enjoy. We're going to do a lot more fun stuff with it. We're going to have special decks that last week we used the self-care deck. And I'm going to use that again. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that every week for the rest of October. And then we'll starting in November, first off, we have extra readings the week of Halloween that are really going to be fun. I'll let you know ahead of time what those themes are, but it's going to be super fun and fun decks. And then the weekend of November, when we go into November, I have an extra super reading that's going to be good as well. But please, if you have not, if this is the first time watching my video, I would be honored if you would like, comment or subscribe. Please let me know. You please also in the comments if there's any ideas for readings that you would like me to kind of focus on. Please let me know, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care. Bye.